And it is true that there was a spike in 1998. And you can see a trend going up since the 70s, which was when, of course, Time magazine was saying we were going into an ice age, which was the same Time magazine said we were going into the Earth was heating up in the 1940s, you know, so we've seen this cycle. And since the 70s, we've been on this upward tick, but the tick peaked in 98, and then it kind of plateaued, and then by most measurements, you see that it's actually starting to drift downward in the last couple of years. One of the big stories is how thin the ice is up in the Arctic Ocean right now. Do you know why? Because there's so much of it. Last winter, they had an incredible freezing, but it's only about 10 feet thick because that's about all you get in one winter. So anyway, well, I digressed quite a bit. I wasn't going to talk about global warming. But you got me going on that one. Yeah. So I would invite some letters to the editor, and I wouldn't mind a few comments my direction on what you may think about that, and go to my website to find out more about it. The last legislative session, I think that's what you want primarily here. And how much time do we have, by the way?
Theoretically, we end at 8, but we keep going until
That's our time.
people get tired.
That's our time.
Okay.
If people have to leave, they have to leave. That's fine.
Well, try to just kind of wrap up my formal stuff at 8. We'll see what happens here. First, let me start with some of the things I ran this year. A couple of things that were unsuccessful I'll jump into first. A resolution urging Congress to pay attention to the 10th Amendment. I put that together, and the President of the Senate assigned it to State Affairs Committee, which means he wants it dead. And sure enough, on a party line vote, it died. It was our own Senator Bob Bacon who was the primary spokesman against the 10th Amendment resolution. What did he call it? I don't remember the exact words, but he basically said that's ancient history. That's passé. We don't discuss that anymore. I kid you not. And he said, as a former history teacher, that we just don't go there. So that was one unsuccessful measure. I had a bill to create an educational tax credit, which, if there was I think it's a 2% participation. What it did is it gave a $1,000 property tax credit to any family who moved their child from a public school setting to a private school, either private school or private or homeschool, one of the two. You got a $1,000 property tax credit as an incentive and encouragement to seek out those other very excellent educational formats that are in our state. If there were a 2% participation from that, it would have been $100 million in savings to the state of Colorado by the fiscal note folks' own numbers. Of course, that one died in committee. It was, oh, that's right, it was our own Senator Bacon who was on that committee as well, and didn't think that was at all possible. Anyway, don't mean to pick on Bob too much, but he deserves it in those two areas. A couple of other measures that well, actually 3 other measures I ran that were successful. One was to simply require that there be proper visible signage for a photo radar installation at an intersection, such as we have in Fort Collins. I'd actually run a bill years ago to say you had to put signs up, but I thought I'd leave it up to local government to figure out what that means. Well, in Fort Collins, it was quite fascinating, because on College and Drake, there is one of these installations, and by the way, these things raise tons of money. Years ago when I ran it, Fort Collins had a smaller installation, and there they said they pulled in almost $1 million a year out of that thing, gross. And when I say that, they turn it over to a vendor who picks up a lot of the cash, but it comes out of people's pocket. And I figure you ought to know about it. You know, you've got cameras all over the place today. Let's find out which ones are actually sending out little traffic, or not little, big traffic citations. Anyway, this bill simply said you have to have a proper sign, and I'm happy to report on College and Drake there used to be this big sign with these teeny letters, and once you read it, you kind of scratched your head and said, what does it say? Yeah. Now there's a big yellow sign that has a traffic light icon on there, and it says photo radar. You get it like that, and I'm glad to see that. Anyway, that was a bill I ran.
Is that at all the places they have cameras, or just?
That's the requirement. Well, for photo radar traffic enforcement cameras.
Right.
That's statewide.
Correct. That's statewide.
And how soon do they have to comply?
You know, I think I ran a safety clause on that, so that would give them till sometime in August, actually, to apply to it. But the governor did sign it, and the reason I did that is because that's what the state constitution prescribes, that people of Colorado have the opportunity to review all laws, and yet I didn't put a safety clause on it. A safety clause makes it effective immediately, which is an exception that the Constitution requires, but we put it on for everything just because we want the law to go into effect immediately, not because of what the Constitution prescribes, which is you need to give people an opportunity to review all laws. Anyway, that's another subject, which I still don't have time for. Another bill that I got passed was concerning the facsimile firearms. You know, the young lady who had a prop rifle for drill team practice and was expelled from school because it was in her car. She wasn't using it, she wasn't threatening, she wasn't going to school or anything, and I realized how absurd that was, and did actually have a bill title open when that issue came up, and thought, well, now's the time to strike, so I put the bill out and it became law, and that was good. Final bill, or final measure I had that was successful was actually the final action of the Senate at the end of the session, and that was a memorial, which is a resolution. It was calling on Congress to end the earmarking practice. And it was simply a statement on the part of the Senate, but did get that passed, even though the majority leader, now president of the Senate, was trying to kill all the Republican memorials on the calendar. I kind of insisted on mine, and they relented. And
Is that binding, though?
No, it's not binding. We in the state cannot, and actually it didn't even make it all the way through the process because it was the last thing we did. The House had already closed up shop for the year, so it didn't get over to the House. Cory Gardner was my House sponsor, but at least the Senate did ascribe to it, so we got that much done. Okay, that's some of the good news.